Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 2020 Digital Aircraft Recovery and Aviation Virtual Summit. I am really excited because right now we have a Women in Aviation panel, and I get to facilitate a discussion with two women who are leaders in the aviation industry and who are bringing about recovery in aviation. And I can't wait to introduce them to you. But first, let me just tell you a little bit about myself and who the heck I am. My name is Susan Schultz of Digital Aircraft. I have a background in engineering. I worked at McDonnell Douglas on the Advanced F-18 program, doing outer air battle analysis with the Navy as an operations analyst. And later, I worked at Northwest Airlines as a performance engineer and led the integration of the flight planning system for performance engineering with Northwest Airlines. Since that time, I've been a mom, I've been an educator, consultant, and an entrepreneur. And let's get to it now. I'd like to introduce the panelists here. Erica Armstrong, a little bio about each one of these leaders. First, from the front desk of a little FBO in Minnesota to the captain's seat of a commercial airliner, Erica has experienced everything aviation has to offer. She's spent 20 years in business aviation, has flown 28 different types of airplanes, and was captain on a Boeing 727 at the airlines. She's currently the VP of Business Development and Instructional Design at Advanced Aircrew Academy and is an aviation professor at MSU Denver. Her aviation articles can be found on different aviation magazines, and she's the author of Chick in the Cockpit. And hello, Erica. How are you today?
Hi, everybody. Hi.
Great. Well, let me introduce Stephanie now. Stephanie's founder and COO of Airspares Unlimited. Stephanie's been in aviation for 20 years and has 15 years of aviation aftermarket trading experience. In this time, she's generated several $10 million plus portfolios with publicly traded companies. As COO, she aligns the mission of the company with business goals, driving substantial growth through the development of business strategies for sales, purchasing, and administration. Stephanie's also founder and president of the Deb Noreen Foundation. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Oh, it's good to have you ladies on. I'm really excited. I just wanted to make a note to our audience that before we start, that you'll want to share this right now with all your contacts. Get online at live.recoveryinaviation.com and you can watch this, and you can also offer up your comments. I'm sure there's going to be some questions that you're going to be wanting to ask of these two leaders in aviation. So we'll have a chance for Q&A as well. So get your questions in there. Okay, so ladies, I just wanted to start off by saying, now you've already been participants in our virtual summit the past couple of days, right? Stephanie, you talked to us yesterday about Airspares Unlimited, and a couple hours ago, Erica, you were talking about all the things that you were doing in the industry, from pilot to author to educator. And so right now, though, I just like you to both give me a little nugget of what you're doing right now, snapshot in time right now, and how you are aiding in recovery in aviation. What are you doing? How are you solving problems? Erica, would you like to start us off?
Sure. So currently I'm working for a company called Advanced Aircrew Academy, and we provide e-learning for business flight departments. So I have a little different perspective on the industry, kind of seeing it from the business aviation side, watching the struggles and actually some of our companies thriving right now. So that's my primary job. And then on the side, I teach over at Metropolitan State University in Denver. They have an aviation department. You can get your aviation degree over there. So I'm teaching aircraft systems and propulsion, and I've got my newbie students in my aviation fundamentals class. So I have students coming right out of high school interested in aviation. So I get to share my 30 years of experience with them and try to set them on the right path.
Oh, that's great. So actual newbie students going to college, going to MSU, yeah. Right? Yeah, because I used to live in Denver. That's a really renowned aviation school. All right,
Absolutely.
Stephanie,
There's not a lot of them out there.
there's not a lot out there. How many are there in the U.S. actually? You know?
There's, we've got UND and Purdue and Embry-Riddle are the main ones, but out in this area, MSU is it.
Oh, okay. So great. And Stephanie, what about you? What are you doing right now?
Well, I'm COO of Airspares Unlimited, and we're focused on landing gear, wheels, and brakes. We distribute aftermarket material to lessors, MROs, airlines, and even trade with other suppliers in the industry. Right now, we are looking at different ways of providing solutions that can fit in with the demand for reducing the expense of replacing landing gear on aircraft. In my free time, I am president and founder of the Deb Noreen Foundation, which is an initiative to provide scholarship funds to women in need who want to go into STEM, foundational, institutional STEM-based programs. A long-term vision for that program is not only to provide financial confidence to women who want to go into those programs, but also provide them a means to see and have access to the paid internship and job opportunities out there for these types of for this type of work, so they can gain the experience that they need to move ahead in STEM-based careers.
That's wonderful, and we'll be focusing in more on that later in the discussion. We'll want to get more in depth in that and see exactly what you're doing, and that's in your spare time, huh?
It's fun. It's something. I mean, giving back is it's really rewarding. It really is.
Well, I'd really love to be sitting at a table with you, drinking the drink of your choice around a table. But right now we're virtual, and we're kind of in our 2D coffee table right now. And we're looking at focusing on engineering, recovery in engineering, and your leadership as a woman, and we're looking at it in a women's perspective, because we know that today leadership, especially in these trying times, is very important, and we need good leaders in order to be able to be resilient and pivot and to be able to make those hard decisions. And you ladies have been in leadership roles, are in leadership roles right now, and I just like to take a moment. We're going to talk about your journey in a minute, but before I do that, I just wanted to address the elephant in the room right now. And that is, there are 61, or I think 62 speakers over a 3-day period here. And there are only 5 women speakers out of the 62. And I'm going to have to talk about Mark Schultz about that. But that's about
I can help you fill that roster.
There you go. That's about an 8%, women are represented here, which is kind of almost about the same type of percentages they're going on in aviation, whether you're in a pilot, maybe a little bit less, and STEM maybe a little bit more, but 8% is kind of around the ballpark. And when I graduated from school I'll say in the 80s, I just saw a New York Times article. I was able to get some archives out of that. Only 5% of engineers were women, which I really didn't realize, which is very interesting. But today, the women that comprise engineering is only 11%, which, over that time period doesn't seem like a very big jump to me. And also in my research, Erica, I was seeing that only 7% of the airline pilots are women. I got that from Women in Aviation Workforce Report, May of 2019, from the University of Nebraska Omaha Aviation Institute. So that's 7%. That's not very much, right? So you're kind of in that small category of women in aviation as a pilot. And I'd like for you to just give us a little, take us down a little bit of your journey on how you got from, where you started to, I know this could be like an hours long conversation, but, just a little bit about your journey, some about your struggles that you've had because, just maybe because of being a woman, looking at it through a woman's eyes. Have you had more of a struggle, things that you had to overcome in the industry in order to become a pilot and in the position you are today?
Yeah, so it takes a generation or two to get solid change and a trend moving. So we're definitely in the right direction. I know for me growing up, I didn't know any of the other women pilots. It wasn't ever an idea that I had put in my brain that I could do that. And when I look at my challenges throughout an entire career, strangely enough, that my biggest barrier to continue on my career was actually another woman. I had been flying for a charter company for a few years. She enticed me to come over to work for her company, and it was saying that she wanted to put me on the flight department. So I quit my job of 6 years. I went across the field, started working over there. They wanted me to work in the office first, and then eventually I would get onto the flight line. But after about 6 months, I still wasn't flying, and I finally sat down with her and I said, tell me what's going on. Why are you not letting me get into the flight department? And she just said, honestly, I don't think our C-suite clients would be comfortable with a woman flying them. So it was very shocking to hear that from her. I never viewed it that way. I was just another pilot. I had more qualifications than most of the pilots that were getting hired, and I was having to hire pilots that had less time and training than I did. And I was hiring them. They were going onto the flight line, and I wasn't, allowed to fly. So I think everybody's going to have their own unique challenges, but it's just perspective, and it takes time. I think like Stephanie and my children growing up are going to have a different view of women in aviation. To summarize that whole entire perspective in one conversation, I was at the grocery store with my 2 kids. They were about 3 and 5 years old at the time. And there was a pilot that came in behind me. He had his shirt on, he had the epaulets off. But I could see him tucked in the pocket. He looked tired, all ragged. So I told him he could go ahead of us. He just had a little tiny basket of groceries, and I had a giant family-sized cart of food. So I let him go ahead of me, and my 5-year-old was pissed off that I let this guy go ahead of us because she wanted to leave. So I explained to her who he was and that he was a pilot. And, we watched him check out, and she crinkled up her nose and looked back at me, and she said, but Mom, do they let boys be pilots too? So that was her perspective on the world, right? And so,
raising
just
them
having
right.
a platform like this. What's that?
I said raising them right.
Yeah, so there you go. Yeah. So just having a platform like this, have Stephanie out there talking, just having other people out there saying, hey, this is our career in aviation. Here's the good, here's the bad, sharing that with the next generation. And foundations like Stephanie is setting up, that makes all the difference in the world.
I find that interesting that you said that another woman was kind of blocking your career path a little bit there. And I kind of resonated with me. Not in engineering, actually. I didn't have any problems. I don't know, maybe because I was the older sister of 2 younger brothers and was bossy, that I was able to get along with the guys, and they were kind of like more like brothers to me. But with the women, I found like I don't know what that is all about with in education, actually, when I taught at a college, that I was kind of getting some really interesting negative pushback. So I that is probably just a whole nother discussion in itself, but but that was kind of an eye opener that, the negativity that I kind of had moving up, whatever, career path I was in, kind of a couple of those times was kind of exasperated or irritated by women. And we should be building each other up and supporting each other. What about you, Stephanie? What have you found has been some struggles that you've overcome during your journey?
Oh boy. Well, I mean, I I really think that I'm lucky in the fact that in the beginning of my aviation career, I too started a small FBO up in northern Chicago, and I was doing the flight desk there. And then I moved into actually doing administrative support for the CEO of a company that sold nose to tail aftermarket parts. And, I was kind of lucky there in the fact that as I started to show more initiative in picking up the phone and saying, you know what, these guys are messing around, I could do what they do, and starting to take sales calls, that someone took notice of me and someone gave me a shot too. And I read your book, Erica, someone gave you a shot too, right? But someone gave me a shot to move into a position of account management. And then, I just took the reins and went from there. Along the way, I had to really build. It wasn't necessarily internal at my job where I was being kind of not brought up to better position. It was external in having the audience that I was trying to sell to accept the fact that I had the knowledge base and I had the skills to be able to support them the way my position was supposed to support them, is sell them parts. So it was kind of difficult hurdle to overcome, that initial face-to-face, hey, could you take me seriously? One, I was very young, which doesn't work in anybody's favor of being very young, man or woman. And then two, maybe the fact that I was a woman kind of forced someone else to think, she's got more to prove in order for me to take her seriously. So once I built up enough internal confidence in my knowledge base and my ability, I was able to brush off some of that and, go full force and, really dive off the deep end into starting my own company and leading and guiding and trying to build others up to do what I do. So I think that's in a nutshell kind of my career path. And then, I know we'll talk about the Deb Noreen Foundation in a little bit. I think that had I had some more support in mentorship from other women who could say, hey, I have this opportunity, you'd be great for it. I see you, Stephanie, and you need to apply for this, or you need to go and get this, or let me show you where you can access this knowledge base, what is available to you. I think I would have been a lot farther along in my career than I am today. So that is, and I think there's a lot of awareness around women in aviation. Here we are, right? And you can see posts on LinkedIn all the time on National Women's Day of companies promoting the women that are working at their companies. And I thank you for creating awareness on, women in aviation or women in STEM in general. And I think that my place in that whole arena is to take the next step and say, I hear you, and this is what I'm going to do based on what you're telling me that you want. And even though it's just a little bit at first, I think that that's my step toward, giving back and lifting other women up. And, I have some really wonderful women working at my company, aeronautical engineers, aerospace engineers. I mean, smart, sharp. They should have my job one day, and I want them to.
Right. I like how you both, you said that somebody, helped you, they kind of, gave you a chance. And that's really important. And I guess that is a part of that mentorship, right? It's kind of hard. And you think about young people today who are trying to get a job, especially in this virtual world right now, where you can't even do interviews, face-to-face interviews with somebody, and you're depending on a resume, going through, the computer and dumping into some file that is being read, with keywords, and dumps you out if you don't have the right keywords in your resume. And that's just a hard road. I think about, the time when I was looking for a job and we didn't have the internet to help us, and we actually had to knock on doors and had to go to face-to-face conferences and that sort of thing, which you can't do right now. But the guy that I ended up, the company I ended up with was the one that I wasn't even seeking out. And he basically waved me down and said, "Come talk to us," which I thought was pretty cool. And I didn't even know anything about aviation. And so that's like kind of makes me think about, Erica, you talking about that a chapter in your book about that meandering path, or the winding path of, getting there. Some people don't say, "Oh yeah, I want to be in aviation," or "I want to be a pilot," or whatever, but you got there, right?
Right. Yeah. And you're right. Networking is the key right now, especially in aviation. It's a small world, right? There's about 2 degrees of separation. I can sit down with anybody in aviation, and usually we'll find some person that we know in common. For me, my original flight instructor was a woman, and we kind of lost touch. About 8 years later, she walked into the cockpit of the airplane, and I was her captain, and she was my first officer. So never burn a bridge in this industry. But in the same regard, that type of connection and support is so important. So my email address is out there. If you ever have a question or you're looking for a job, you can email me and I will connect you with an opening. I work with 300 different flight departments. I hear different openings, and a lot of them will never be posted. That's the key for pilots, at least, getting into the industry, is a lot of those right seats in the King Airs aren't posted. So it's knowing people and just spreading the word out. And like Stephanie was saying, not just talking about it, but actually doing something. We spent a lot of time building up women in aviation boards. I know the FAA has a new one. So we do a lot of talking about it. But it takes that extra effort for somebody to actually go back into the community, into the aviation world, and do something. Just, teach, mentor, go into a school and talk about your experience, no matter what it is. I know we're super busy, but if you just think about how aviation has changed your life, I know it changed mine. So that's my give back, and at the point of my life where I can spend some time doing that. So yeah, that's the key. Not just talking, but doing.
Yeah, exactly. So I love, yeah, we have obstacles and things that we overcome, and maybe specifically to women, as Stephanie, you pointed out, and Erica, I know that you said a woman kind of was one block. Did you have any like confidence issues or with men that thought that because you're a woman that you weren't competent, or did you have any of those type of issues along the way, since this is a male-dominated industry?
The key change for me was the point where I learned to turn that weakness around and use it to my advantage. So, like when I was on the 727, there are 3 pilots in the cockpit, and so at any given time, I'm walking in with 2 other pilots there, and for the most part, they've never flown with a woman. So I go about my day. I'm just a pilot, and I don't look at the world that I'm a woman pilot. I'm just a pilot, so I'm just there to do my job. I walk in the cockpit. And for them, they're like, "Oh my God, there's a woman in here." But for me, I'm so used to that. I'm used to walking in and working with the men. So for me, it's not a big deal at all. So already in the beginning, I'm at the advantage because they're already, not used to it and not sure what to do. So, it's my imperative to, bring humor in there, do my job really well, and just get down to work. And it was amazing to see the shift. They'd be up there telling dirty jokes or something, and then I'd walk in and they'd all straighten up. And, so I just go in there, I do my job. My dogs are talking here. Go in and do my job, have fun with it, and you could see them relax and just, accept the differences. And a lot of these guys who I'd never flown with before have remained my lifelong friends.
Oh, that's great. Well, I know that we talked about, some of the obstacles, but the skills that are really needed. I liked what Stephanie, you said about, developing the skills that you needed, and then you gain confidence. And once you gain confidence, then you're able to, shrug some of the stuff off and just kind of focus on the next thing. Perhaps when you become more confident in where you are at that point, it gives you a bigger vision. Do you think that's true? You think that gives you a big, because where you start off to where you are,
Yes. In fact, when I started Airspares Unlimited, I didn't even have the vision for what it became, what it is today. But it is. And now my vision is, like I told Mark in the previous interview, is now my vision is so big that there is so much to do to get there, but I fully believe that it can be done and that it will be done. So, I mean, confidence is not something that someone can teach you. It's not something that you earn. It's something that you have. And every one of us has the capability to have confidence. And, the way that I was able to build it was by increasing my knowledge base, doing the right thing, even if it meant it wasn't in my benefit. And that is having integrity. And then being able to have a high level of integrity, which I guess goes along with doing the right thing. And then in turn, being respectful and trying to understand the perspective of the person sitting across from me was really important, because once I learned about that person, I could figure out how I could best communicate with confidence to them in a solution that they were going to well receive, or even navigate a difficult situation. I think that, I do really well with super grumpy people, because, how could you be grumpy when someone tells a good joke? So I'm a jokester on the phone, and I think that's helped me a lot. But it's something that you have to develop on your own. But just listen to people like Erica and Susan, and I know a lot of wonderful women in aviation, people in leadership roles. My neighbor is a pilot for UPS. Yes, and her husband's a pilot for FedEx. So I find inspiration in people like you and other women leaders in aviation, and I find inspiration in just women in aviation in general. The people I work with, the ladies I work with, they inspire me, and the other women that I talk to, that I buy parts from or sell parts to, they inspire me too. And, I see them doing things and I say, I can do things too. And, I think that back and forth really helps to kind of stack the deck in our favor for helping each other become confident.
That's great. I really love what you said about the mentorship, and about, women that are, you see them in that position, you see Stephanie's, Erica's, you see these women and you say, oh, I want to be like them, or they did it, maybe I can do it too. So it gives you a vision of what you can be as well. So it's really important to have those role models. And I know that Erica, as I was reading in your book, I was chuckling about you talking about the differences of men and women in the cockpit, and how they just take in all the information and process it. Because we, men and women, we sometimes, neuroscience says we do think a little bit differently. Okay, we're all people, and we have a knowledge base and everything, but we do come from a just different perspective sometimes. But we all have something to offer, and I think men and women complement each other, and we do need that knowledge base of women to help with solving big problems. And with only 7 to 11% of people in the industry that are women, I think we have a great ways to go to be able to just be able to somehow create a larger pool that we can pull on from that knowledge base. But that being said, Erica, can you give me a little insight on men versus women and how they think and how you think that women can help and contribute?
Absolutely. Yeah, we could spend a whole day just talking about that, right? So yeah, and so when I was young, I found out that I was adopted. So I've spent my whole life really observing nurture versus nature. What is a pilot personality? What traits follows with them in that field? So definitely a certain person that is drawn into the industry. They kind of share, the same basic characteristics in the background. But also researching how men and women's brains are different. I mean, I hate to admit it, but we are gloriously different. We reach our end goals the same, but how we get there is a little bit different. They continue studying and understanding how our brains work in general. For me, I'm always observing how pilots learn. So I'm trying my best to understand how the pilot brain learns so that I can teach to that method. For years we've been training pilots to do rote memorization, limitations, and but in an emergency, it's really quite worthless. So teaching a visualization, women are very good at doing that. If you put a man and a woman in the simulator and give them an emergency, you might see that the woman is actually responding slower. But what's actually happening is that the woman is using all the white matter in her brain, and so she's actually going down different pathways, trying to, if there's an action, what's going to be the reaction? If I flip this switch, what's going to happen? So women tend to move a little bit slower, but what they're doing is they're making correct decisions. Men use more gray matter, so they get very focused on something, and when they're in that deep focus, that's the same reason why your dad has to turn the radio down to read a street sign. It's that kind of singular focus. So those are both awesome traits during an emergency, but how wonderful to have two people in there that can balance that out. So we can have one person who's eliminating that tunnel vision, because that's human nature. If we are faced with an emergency, our brains focus on that one issue. Whereas the woman, she can be on the telephone listening to the kids, the TV's on, and a woman can still take in all that input. So different general traits that a man and woman, male and female brains have. It's nice balance to have in the cockpit for both of those.
Right.
Very interesting.
That is interesting. I just had to make a comment about the different roles, and I agree with like different multitasking. Women can do that, but I find myself sometimes, Mark and I, in role reversals too, where I'm the more focused one and he's more of the multitasker. I remember when I was working from home when my youngest was small, and he had to actually put his hands on my cheek and go, "Mom," my attention because I was so focused. But that's just one example. But in other ways, we're kind of like men and women, like the typical men and women. But there is that role reversal too. Hey, I have a question for Erica. I'd like to take this right now. It says, do you have activities, or are you planning to have them, to reach out and inspire younger girls around the world, not only in the USA? This is from Dulcie Leba.
At the Civil Aviation Authority.
At the Civil Aviation Authority.
Yeah, so Civil Aviation, nice. So every month I take book speaking engagements. I go into schools. I know COVID has slowed us down, but we're still doing them online. So every month I try to go to at least 2 schools and talk to the younger students and just put the idea out there of aviation. There are 10 million jobs in the United States that are associated with the aviation industry. So not even just being a pilot, but we need dispatchers and A&P mechanics. It takes so many talents to keep the industry running. So just to introduce the industry itself. Most of my students come in thinking they want to be airline pilots. I try to introduce them into the whole business aviation sector. That sector has grown so much over the last 20, 25 years. COVID has not slowed down business aviation. It's actually thriving right now. So it's exciting to watch that segment of the industry continue to grow. It gives my students hope. They haven't been in that whole cycle of aviation yet. If you've been in it for a while, you see the extreme ups and downs following the economy, and nothing could prepare us for COVID. But the industry's used to having to overcome these all of a sudden changes in our external environment. So we'll get through it just like we always have. And I'm excited for my students. Once we get this thing handled, we figure out how to deal with COVID and move forward, I think the industry is going to just thrive again. The airline in the industry was making a lot of money right before COVID. Hopefully we can step right into that trend again and bring the excitement with us too.
Right. Hey, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what, this question kind of preface this, but with you working with women and education and awareness, but also Stephanie, you have a foundation which you mentioned earlier. Could you tell us about that foundation and who it's for, and give us a little information about that?
Yes, so the Deb Noreen Foundation, it's debnoreen.org, is a foundation dedicating to raising women up in institutional and foundational STEM educational programs. And our primary goal is to award scholarships to women who would like to go into STEM-oriented education programs at an institutional level, university, junior college, whatever it may be. And then the long-term goal is to be able to provide means of opportunities and visibility of opportunities for women in the way of internships and job openings in those fields, so that they can, progress and actually be working in those sectors, be working in that sector. So I think part of the goal is to provide financial confidence for women who want to get an education in STEM. And then the other part of that goal is to provide the means for them to actually get jobs and experience in those fields so that they can develop their career in STEM.
That's awesome. That's wonderful. So you're offering scholarships plus
Yes.
the opportunity for mentorship through internships.
Yes. So our first call, our first action is to award scholarships. And then our future vision is to be able to provide information and resources for internships and jobs in the future. We can receive help not only in the way of donation, but also inquiries from companies and organizations that actually want to get involved by making their openings available to these women. And that would be wonderful. I've been talking about the Deb Noreen Foundation within the industry to other aviation companies, and the response has been amazing. I've had some conversations with major airlines that are interested in getting involved in some way, and also a lot of different companies within the aviation industry who happen to be women-run or women-owned who said, let me know what I can do to help. So the response has been really great.
That's great. And those that are listening right now, there's more people that can jump in and join in as well and be a participant, as well as the 61, 62 different companies that are represented here on this virtual summit. But Erica, I love this Keymaster Gatekeeper thing here, reference to Ghostbusters. But we have the means for women who need it to get a scholarship and actually be mentored and have an internship and get some experience, which is so important. Erica, how important, being an educator, how important is this foundation?
It's extremely important for a woman to know that there's some support out there. It's a long road to get into the paid cockpit. The limits or the minimum times have been raised over the years. So the washout rate is extremely high. I'd say about 80% of the people that take that first step into the cockpit thinking that they want to do that for a living, about 80% of them don't continue on. And the trend over the years is setting us up for a pilot shortage. I know that's hard to say right now with COVID, and we've got furloughs and layoffs coming. So, but if you look at the big picture of our industry and where we're at, we've got 200,000 less pilots in the general aviation population than we did back in 1986. So, if you look at the overall trend of people coming into the industry, it's declining. So to have a scholarship out there, even a couple $1,000s here and there to get you over that one barrier, it means everything. But then I also love, because companies compete, right? So if they see that Stephanie's setting up a scholarship, they're going to say, well, I'm going to set up a scholarship too and get my name out there. So let's make it a competition. Let's see who can get out there and help. And I'm serious when I say, you guys, you can email me anytime if you need a connection to a scholarship, you need connections in your local community. If you're got your ratings, maybe you're just trying to get some time in the right seat, start even your instrument training, you need a safety pilot. I'll try to hook you up with somebody in your local airport, your local industry. I have a few connections on LinkedIn, so I can use those resources that I've built over the years to help you locally to keep moving. Just having somebody in your corner and answering a few questions for you, it's a long road. So just having somebody that you can toss a few questions to, find some financial support out there. Women just want a chance. That really is all they want, is just given the opportunity to give it a try, and that's all we're asking for. So it's a great trend. The more you see out there, the better it'll get out in the industry.
That's great. And as we wrap it up here, I just want to leave the audience with that you can go to live.recoveryinaviation.com and go to the agenda page where the speakers are, and you can click on Erica Armstrong's bio. There'll be a link there that'll take you to how you can get in touch with her, and through LinkedIn or through email. And what was exactly that URL? Erica? That's on the agenda.
If you just Google a chicken cockpit, you'll find me.
Okay. The internet kind of went out right there. Couldn't hear you.
My kids are doing online school right now, so we're all fighting over internet.
No worries. But you can get in touch with Erica through the Recovery in LinkedIn or the live.recoveryinaviation.com, and she can help you get hooked up and get you some experience or get you a mentor. Also, Stephanie with the Deb Noreen Foundation, which you told me was named after your mother and mother-in-law, who are fierce women.
Yes, they are.
Awesome. And I know that a lot of people in our audience are going to want to connect with that and get more information on that. And that link is, I think we have that link, don't we? Yes, there we go, debnoreen.org, where you can support that foundation and get more information on how you can be a part of helping women in aviation and in supporting the recovery in aviation in general. Right. So, ladies, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to be with me and having this discussion in women in aviation. It's been very valuable, and it's just been kind of just a little drop in the bucket. We could have spent many hours going very, very much deeper, but we only have 45 minutes, but just enough to wet your whistle and to get more information from Erica. Make sure you get her book, Chick in the Cockpit, which is sharing her life in the cockpit as a woman and just as a pilot. And also, thank you so much, Stephanie. And we hope that many out there will be looking into your foundation and will be joining arms with you and linking arms with you to be sponsors to young women to get into aviation.
That would be wonderful.
Right. So thank you for your part in recovery in aviation, ladies, through your education, your leadership, and the skills and the things that you bring to the table. We really appreciate it. Thank you. And you guys have a great day.
Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
you.